There's a really easy way to take magazine quality portraits using the simple lighting technique I'm going to show you how to do in this video. Hi, my name is Ed Vorosky, and I teach photographers like you how to use lighting to create better portraits. And today we're going to talk about one of my favorite lighting techniques using just 2 flash units. And it's something that you can set up quickly and easily, and you can always walk away with high quality portraits using this technique. Okay, I have several go-to lighting techniques that I like to use. Sometimes I just like to use a key light, and that's basically a 1-light portrait setup. Sometimes I use a key and a fill, and sometimes a key and a background light. And I often like to mix a simple key light with ambient light too. But several years ago, I did some freelance work for a local magazine where I'd have to go out and take environmental portraits of different, business owners and entertainers. And so to do this, I needed some way to quickly and reliably produce commercial quality portraits using minimal gear, and I usually had very narrow time frames to work with. I also usually worked alone, so that meant traveling very light and getting in and out quickly. And these shots were usually done in workplaces or at the subject's home. So even though I do like to use a lot of different types of portrait lighting setups, when I'm working with a lot of these constraints, I try to keep things simple. And that's what I needed for the editorial work I was doing at the time. My gear back then consisted mostly of 2 flashes and 2 shoot-through umbrellas. Now I had 1 camera and a backup camera, and I mostly shot with a 40 to 70 millimeter lens. Now these days I'd use something with a little more range, but back then that's all I had to work with, and it worked out just fine. Now as far as the gear goes, you're going to need 2 flash units, 2 light stands, 2 flash brackets, and 1 or 2 shoot-through umbrellas. Now, of course, you can use any modifiers that you'd like I'm sometimes going to use, a strip softbox. But for this video, I just want to tell you how you can do things the simple way, easy setup, easy takedown. And in this case, you're going to be doing off-camera flash, so I'd suggest something like Godox or Westcott flash units or strobes and a matching flash trigger. Now, I do have videos about using flash triggers, so you can look for those on my channel or in the video description. As for the lighting setup, here's how I'd set this whole thing up. First, I'd walk in to meet the subject, and then we'd kind of work out where the photography should take place, and I'd usually find 2 or 3 areas or backgrounds to try. Next, I'd head back out to my car, and I'd grab my gear. Now, I made things really easy on myself by having my flash units already mounted to the light stands. In other words, I try to keep my gear already assembled and ready to go as much as possible. The same is true for my settings. Now, I always, to this day, start off with typical flash settings, of my own. So I'm pretty much dialed in for the types of shots that I'm going to be doing. Next, I'd set up my key light, I'd mount the umbrella, and set up a second light, which could serve multiple uses depending on the environment. So sometimes I would use a shoot-through umbrella modifier on that one, depending on how I want the light to spread. Now, the key light is always the most important thing to get right. And, once that was set up, I'd place the second light somewhere behind and to the side of the subject. You might think of this position as being opposite the key. And I did this to create a nice little highlight effect against the side of the subject that was, more in the shadow created by the key. Now, this effect can come off as a kicker or a kicker hair light combo. And some people call this style of lighting cross lighting, but whatever you want to call it, it works. And this setup is just a simple way to create a portrait that looks natural, but with just a little extra pop, which is perfect for editorial work or, really any time that you want to add interest to an otherwise potentially flat portrait setup. If you're ready to take the next step, I've got a course called Flash Portraits Made Simple that walks you through all of that, from setting up your first light to building confident, creative lighting setups that you can use anywhere. Flash Portraits Made Simple is built for photographers who want to feel confident with flash, even if they've struggled with it before or they're just getting started. Inside, I walk you through all the fundamentals: off-camera flash setups, exposure settings, working in TTL and manual, plus how to build 5 of the most useful lighting patterns with just 1 flash. You'll see exactly how I do it in my own home studio and how you can do the same in your space, even if it's small. I've stripped out all the fluff and made it really easy to follow, so you're not spending hours trying to decode technical jargon or watch 5 different videos to figure out where to start. You're also going to get bonus guides and cheat sheets to speed things up. And the course is on demand, so you can learn at your own pace and refer back to it anytime. Now, before we get into settings that I would use, I'll mention that most flash units and the triggers designed for them are capable of using TTL for automatic flash control. So you can use TTL if you'd like, but I'd really recommend using manual flash and manual camera settings instead. Manual is going to keep things consistent from shot to shot, and you'll just have more control over everything. TTL, on the other hand, can be a little inconsistent and not always very accurate, so use manual. All right, generally we want our settings to remain fairly consistent from shoot to shoot, especially when we're trying to maintain a consistent look and we want to work fast. So once you get your typical settings dialed in and you know where you normally like to place your lights, including distances, everything else becomes pretty straightforward. Here's an example. Let's say my camera settings are ISO 200 and my shutter speed is 1/250th of a second. My aperture is f4. So let's say I generally like to stay in that range for the type of shoot that I'm doing. Now, if I'm using a decent speed light, my settings for the key light might be 1/4 power using an umbrella modifier and placing it at around 3 to 4 feet from the subject. Now I do a test shot, everything looks good, and if not, I make a slight adjustment to either the camera settings, the light power setting, or the distance from the light to the subject. Now when that's all done and the test shot looks good, I'm ready to place my second light to serve as that accent kicker, or whatever you want to call it. Now that light's going to be several feet away and may or may not be modified with an umbrella or a strip softbox. Again, that depends on the situation. All I want from that light is a nice highlight to serve the function of a kicker light. On that second light, I'd probably stick with a power setting of twice what I'm using for the key light. Again, if after taking a test shot it doesn't look right in terms of placement or light intensity, I'm just going to make a quick adjustment. Generally, this whole process can take only a minute or two if you've already dialed in your settings. The subject's always in the same place relative to your lights, so the only thing that really changes is the location and the environment. All right, this is the type of shot anyone can do with a little practice. And once you get comfortable doing this, adding lights to the mix or mixing your lighting with ambient light sources isn't that much of a stretch. Now, if you'd like to learn exactly how to set up your flash for portraits, including recommendations on the actual gear that I use, I highly recommend that you download my free guide, the 10-minute guide to off-camera flash. This is going to get you on the fast track to taking beautiful portraits with your flash. And this free bonus bundle also includes the very handy camera bag checklist, the photo shoot notebook sheet so that you can have a convenient way to jot down your lighting setups and all your settings for a particular shot. And this way you can build up your own lighting recipe notebook. Plus, you'll also get a couple of model release templates that I use for my portrait shoots. A lot of good stuff in here. Click the link in the video description below to get all of this for free. Okay guys, I hope you found this video useful. Let me know in the comments and be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. That's about all I've got for you today. I'll see you next time.